Hi, I'm Dennis Young. I'm founder of Issues in Education. And with me is Dr. David Schuler. He's superintendent of Township High School District 214 in Chicago. You know, it's kind of interesting. Your district is one of the largest high school districts is it in the country or in the state?
In the state.
In the state. And there's 6 high school districts, about 12,300 plus students. At least that's what it was last year.
Yep, correct.
I'm
We're
sure
still
you're
right around
growing.
there. Yep.
And his district covers about 68 square miles. So you really have a big area just in the northern suburbs of Chicago. But if that's not enough of a challenge, David was given the Distinguished Award of the 2018 Superintendent of the Year. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So,
Thank you.
You know, I've listened to your keynote speech, and I thought you did a great job. Just
thanks.
fabulous. And two of the topics that really resonated with me, and I think with the audience here, is the first one of really redefining what it means to have students ready at the high school level. And I thought you might comment on that.
Yeah, you know, I think for way too long we focused on only preparing kids to take a test,
Right.
and that's how we've judged students and schools, and I think that's completely unfair to their communities. And so we did a meta-analysis to say, what does the research actually say about what it means to be ready? And what we found is there are a lot of different ways that students should be able to demonstrate readiness.
Good. Well, you know, I've learned over the years there's this academic pathway, but you focused on the career pathway. I thought you might highlight that a little bit.
Yeah, you know, we want all of our students to be dreaming beyond high school. And so one way to do that is to ask them and to think about what kind of career they may want to pursue, or at least explore, and then develop a plan for them to have an experience in that pathway while they're with us in high school.
What are some of the greatest, I guess, challenges you had to overcome initially to get these programs started?
I think one of the biggest was to convince our school board and convince our community that we were still going to do fine on tests, but we were going to create a more relevant experience, and to just trust us and knowing that we were going to fail forward in different spots. But once we started our first pathway based on the economic need of our community, and so for us it was healthcare. And so we built that pathway first, and then our second was manufacturing, and we built that pathway next. And so we were able to demonstrate in real time exactly what was needed in our local economy to provide that talent pipeline. And I think once we got those successes under our belt, it became much easier to scale quickly.
Well, it's interesting, you know, in the academic world, you know, failing is sometimes not an option, but if you're going to do something new, you have to test it and fail, and in the business world we call it pivot, and move ahead again, and then pivot and move ahead again. So it sounds like you've been successful at doing that.
Yeah, we tell all of our teachers and our kids, look, if it doesn't work, it's version 1.0.
Right.
You know, and that's totally okay.
Yeah, Microsoft came up with
exactly.
that. You know, I've been their beta test on every piece of software that's come out. It's interesting. Years ago, probably about 10, my company was in a mentorship program. And so from this side of the fence, it was kind of interesting to watch. Are all students ready for that kind of mentorship program?
Absolutely.
Great.
I think we have to provide the skills. We run a boot camp for all of our kids that are going to go off and do an external workplace learning experience.
Great.
Kind of talk about what they should wear, talk about, you know, what,
Not just throw them in, huh?
Right, exactly. Yep. Because we want those partners, we want those mentors to ensure that they understand that value as well.
So of all the career paths, what are the ones that the students pretty much gravitate to, or is it universal spread?
No, it really depends on the school and the community. We have some of our schools that are much more focused on that manufacturing pathway.
Sure.
We've got some other schools that have seen the medical field really kind of explode, and a couple of our schools are really, really heavy into the business pathway. So it just kind of depends.
I see.
You know.
So what are the feedback that you're getting from the students? You know, kind of like off the record feedback.
Oh, they love it. They just love it. In fact, after the presentation yesterday, one of our board members from an elementary district brought her daughter up and said, I was in that geometry and construction class and that changed my life. And I'm like, all right.
Wow,
yes,
that's great.
So the feedback, they love it because they're not just focused on completing packets. They're actually participating in something that's relevant to them, and this project-based learning is just awesome.
No lectures? My goodness.
I'm not saying we've completely cracked the nut, but we've got an awesome set of teachers that really understand how this generation learns and how we have to pivot our teaching practices to meet that.
Sure. So now if I'm wearing my board member hat, I'm going to ask you, well, how's this affecting test scores?
And it hasn't. Our scores continue to go up, and yeah, you have to. I mean, kids have to access a certain baseline test score to open up access of opportunity. But it doesn't mean that that's all we should be focusing on to make sure that they maximize the best test score. And the reality is, you know, the SAT is really heavy right now on evidence-based reading and writing. Well, that just means we use evidence-based reading and writing. That's the context through which we're teaching the content.
Yeah.
And it's going great.
Yeah, very good. Well, one of the things I learned on the mentorship side, on the corporate side, is that when students walk into kind of a work environment, they look around at the space, and probably within 10 seconds, they form an opinion. So if the space is really cool, with a lot of tools and something different, they seem to react pretty well, as opposed to walking in, there's rows of tables, and it's an office environment.
And that's why our learning environments have to be flexible too, right? We have to create that learning environment that makes them want to be there, rather than having them forced to be there.
Right. You know, some of the colleges and universities I work with realize that to be relevant and to be, I guess, competitive against other universities, because public K through 12, if they're in your district, they're coming to your school most likely. They realize that the Z generation, the alpha that's coming pretty soon, they have to really understand what are their behavioral traits, what are they looking for. And I'm sure you've already figured that out because you're working with them. Colleges aren't yet.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's going to be a real challenge for higher ed to see if they can make that pivot. Because I think a lot of, when you look at the places that are losing enrollment, you know, I would respectfully suggest they haven't made that pivot in an effective way and then communicated that to kids. You know, we take all of our freshmen on college campus visits, and you're absolutely right. Within the first hour, they've already made an opinion based on if that's going to be on their list or not on that list. Right?
Pretty much.
And especially at first generation students. And one of the things I'll say is we'd been taking our first gen students on college trips for quite a while, but we hadn't seen a huge uptick in them attending college. About 3 years ago, we started bringing their parents with them, and that was a game changer. Because the parents, their perspective is only what they know. And so their perspective, what they see on TV, what they see in the movies, is not a place they want to send their 18-year-old daughter.
Probably not.
You know, so we needed to get them on the college campus. And all of a sudden, you see they'll step off the bus, especially the dads, and they're all tight and closed up. And then about an hour and a half later, they start opening up. And then after about 2.5 hours, they get a smile on their face. And I'm like, that's the point where they can actually envision in their mind their daughter being safe at that school.
Can't learn if you don't feel safe.
Correct.
Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to watch how spaces have changed over the last 3 or 4 years. Libraries are reducing the number of books to make way for students. In the case of a couple of colleges I know I'm working with, they are taking offline auditoriums because their utilization is pretty low, and they're converting those into innovation centers.
Yeah, I think all of our schools have some sort of innovation space, and I think all schools need to have something. And you know, somebody mentioned to me yesterday after my presentation, well, it's only because you guys have so much money that you can do that. Whereas you don't need money to do it. It's just reallocating your resources when you think through a different lens. You know, so for us to buy furniture, we were spending money on desks. We now don't buy desks; we buy different types of tables. You know? And so it's just reallocating those resources in a way to provide those flexible learning environments, and asking our kids what they want, how they want to learn.
That's great. That's great. So now that you have your vision kind of in line with where the students wish to go and certainly need to go in our economy, how do you take the skills and the attitudes of your staff and get them kind of realigned to your vision?
Yeah, it hasn't been a huge deal because we were very intentional about how we started, and we did everything through a pilot process.
Oh, I see.
So no one had to do the work. They got to propose an idea, and then they had to present it to a group, and if that group thought it was a good way to transform teaching and learning, we supported it. And what ended up happening over the course of about 4 years, all of our teachers got there. And so it's been awesome. We went from I think we had 8 pilots that we approved the first year to 17 to 29, and then we went to scale. And so I think as long as you do it incrementally, and you do it through a teacher-led process or a teacher-supported process.
They have ownership.
They have ownership over it.
Yeah. So you've been able to break down the silos, huh? The science department and the language arts department and all the other departments?
I wouldn't say we're totally there, but a perfect example of that cross kind of collaboration.
Yeah.
Our graphics kids make T-shirts for our elementary and middle school kids,
cool.
and we have those juniors and seniors actually create a video. 'Cause this is going to surprise you, but 3rd and 5th graders think T-shirts just happen, right? and so we have them make a video of how they make the T-shirts, but they have to do it at the lexile level of a 3rd or a 5th grader. So the kids have to go out and research the words that a 3rd or 5th grader will understand, and then that's how they communicate to the kids and how they make that video.
Neat.
So it's a really cool project.
Well, we're always looking for analytics on what impacts student learning in a space. There's natural light, there's the right furniture, there's the ability to have flexibility and adaptability. Have you, without any real analysis, but a gut, have you been able to assess what works best for students?
I think you have to have modular furniture that can move based on what the activity is happening. Natural light, I think, is huge. Whenever we have a new space, we cut out part of the wall and make a window to the hallway so that kids are walking by might pique their interest and be like, oh, what is that? Maybe I should go and check it out, And then I think you have to have chairs that are on wheels. You will see student achievement skyrocket with a kid that has ADHD if they're in a chair that has wheels and they can just move a little bit.
Well, in addition to talking to the academic world, we've talked to the corporate world. And I was able to sit in on an interview at SpaceX to watch that process some. And what I found was really interesting. They interview totally different than what I might. They're interviewing, they don't care about the resume. They just care about your skills. What skills do you bring? And the skills that you don't have, they'll develop with you. So it looks like it's lifelong learning from here on out.
That's right. Absolutely. I mean, I think they want their employees to show up.
Yeah.
And if they have a good attitude and a positive attitude and they want to work hard, they will teach them the skills they need to be successful in that field.
Absolutely.